Good evening, family. Welcome to another Wednesday night in the Word. My name is Carlos Sr. I'm the lead elder, New Hope, in sunny St. Petersburg, Florida. Excited to get into tonight's Word. Um, Apologize for starting a little late tonight, celebrating my mother in law's birthday today. Happy birthday, Jackie Graham. Praying that the Lord bless you with many, 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 many more. And we'll continue the celebration this weekend. Uh, but let's get into it tonight. As you know, this year we have been working our way through the Old Testament. Currently, we're in the book of the Psalms, or book of Psalms, or the Psalms. And tonight we're going to focus on Psalm 37. Now, one of the things that I stopped doing a long time ago because it's become kind of cliche, a little played out. No disrespect to any communicators and ministers that still do it, but pulling. One of the things I stopped doing a while ago was using pop culture phenomena as lead-in or titles for sermons, Bible studies, or whatever, right? Because everybody's seen that one meme where it talks about something that happens in pop culture, and then in what people imagining what the preacher is going to do with that that Sunday, right? So I try to avoid it. But as I was looking at Psalm 37, um, I just could not get away from framing this as a conversation of they not like us, right? And so for any of you who are like me, maybe consume way more pop culture material than is sometimes warranted. One of the things that has captured the public attention the last couple of months is this back and forth hip hop beef between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Kendrick's last song addressed to Drake was a West Coast banger that was titled "They Not Like Us." Needless to say, in the context of the song, Kendrick is less than charitable in describing what distinguishes him and people like him from people like Drake, and the people that Drake surrounds himself with. Bible study has nothing to do with trying to dissect that conversation that those two gentlemen are having through rhyme. But it is to say that the back and forth between them does reveal a kind of cultural fissure that has always kind of existed in society, where people choose to walk a certain path. And as they're walking that path, there are alternative paths that they could be walking that sometimes appear to be um, um, productive, fruitful, appear to be the path that offers the greatest return, um, whether it be finance, fame, power. And that kind of brings us to the conversation that is taking place in Psalm 37. It is a psalm that is attributed to King David. And in this song, King David explores the thoughts that he's having as he looks and he sees so many people having success who are doing so through less than righteous means, right? He sees a situation where the people who are doing it the wrong way are getting ahead, um, and maybe sometimes in the face of people who are trying to do the right thing, seeming to suffer. And so David, you know, like many creatives, when he's processing this, he's praying through it, he's working through it, sits down and under the inspiration of the Holy Spirit pens this beautiful psalm that we have in Psalm 37. Now, I want to read just a few snippets from it. We're not going to get into the whole psalm, but we'll just kind of survey it. But David talks about, fret not thyself because of evildoers, neither be thou envious against the workers of iniquity, for they shall soon be cut down like the grass and wither as the green herb. Trust in the Lord and do good, so shalt thou dwell in the land, and verily thou shalt be fed. And those are the first three verses of Psalm 37. And those first three verses are almost kind of like a thesis for the psalm. It gives us some indication of what David is going to talk about and what in the area where he wants to encourage anyone who is seeking to live a righteous life, a high character, high integrity life, a life that pleases God, a life that is productive for oneself and offers value to those that you're connected to. David talks about sometimes when we're seeking to do those things, then we can't be afraid of acknowledging the real distinctions that will exist between you and maybe others who are choosing a different path for themselves and their families. And so David says, when you're in that situation and you're maybe, kind of feeling envious or jealous about people who, are making gains through illegitimate means or who seem to be doing well, even though their integrity is questionable, who are enjoying the kind of life that maybe you would want for yourself, um and but it just but their character is trash. They the way that they behave and treat other people. And sometimes you just go, man, God, how can the economy work like this, where you've got people that seem to work so hard and put so much into trying to help others, while there are other people who seem to just see, how much they can extract from others, and finding different ways to take advantage of others in order to enrich themselves, or grant or inflate their own ego. If you've ever found yourself in that position, then know that you're in good company. Even David and many others throughout history have wrestled with that same conundrum. Um, if the world is created by a good God and it is governed by principles of justice and righteousness, then how can these things be? And David reminds us of three things that we can focus on when we are in those spaces. The first thing is that David wants us to remember the transient nature of the wicked, or wickedness. What David says is, just as grass withers and flowers fade, the success of the wicked is temporary. Um, that whatever they've accrued, whatever they've gained, it is only but for a season. I want you to think about, one historical figure that comes to mind. I was having a conversation with somebody the other day, believe it or not, about Mansa Musa. One of the richest man to have ever lived during the 14th century. He was the emperor of Mali, and I mean, when you get into the historical references about his kingdom, the kind of wealth that he was able to amass. I know that the scriptures talk about Solomon being, the wisest, wealthiest ever. But man, Mansa Musa, the empire that guy was able to put together is just mind blowing. But yet, most people probably, some of you maybe have never even heard of that name. There is no real record. There's some record, some historical record, but but there is no evidence that he's, I won't say there's no evidence. Let's just say that he is a largely forgotten figure. He is not someone that is discussed, at a dinner party, or when you're hanging out with your friends, because all of that stuff is transient. It is fleeting. It is passing. Um, it lacks real sturdiness and substantiveness. And so what David is saying, or what he wants to inspire us to do, is to set our affection on things that have more substance, that offer more lasting value, especially to us, right? Pursuing fame and and name recognition can have a certain appeal, and wanting to be known and seen can appeal to that need that all of us have to feel valued, treasured, and seen. But David wants us to understand uh, that those things, when acquired or accrued simply through transactional relationships and seeing how much stuff I can get, um, it just doesn't last. There's a great video that's circulating, interview with Will Smith, where Will Smith talked about what it feels like to, when you get to the top of the mountain, like when you have all of the wealth uh, that one man or woman could want, when you have all of the kind of notoriety and name recognition, when you have traveled the globe and can really literally hop on a plane and go anywhere you want to go, when um, there are men who want to be you and women who want to be with you, and there is and there is no shortage of that supply. When you have all of the things that a person could conceivably want as it relates to the material world, where does that land you? Will Smith says that for him, he sounded like Solomon to me, right? He said where it landed him, man, was like almost sort of like an existential crisis. It's like, he says he got there to the top of the mountain. He's like, okay, is this all there is? Is this it? Is this it? It's kind of like when you get invited to your favorite buffet, right? They have all you can eat snow crab night, where you fill in the restaurant, and me and Sean were talking about this the other day, and I'm like, it maybe if you like crabs, it's appealing until you actually get there and then you start consuming them, and they're just bringing tray after tray of crabs, and after a while, like not only do you get full, but if you're careful, it's like you don't want to see a crab anytime soon, in your lifetime. Um, Such is it with the accumulation of things. Whatever void you may feel that exists in your life, whatever need that you have for validation, a sense of security, uh, or just a sense of accomplishment, the accumulation of things will never fill that void, right? It's just the more you throw into it, the more you become aware. Well, I won't say you become aware. I'll just say the more you throw into it, the more you realize what you've thrown in is not enough. And so sometimes what people do is they double down and let me just keep throwing things in, and not realizing like the pit is almost bottomless. And so we talk about that void that only God can fill. That is a real thing. It's cliche, but it's a real thing. And so David says, I want to give you that perspective, that the nature of things on the side of the wicked is that it is transient. It is like grass that withers, flowers that fade. And so what does he offer us in replacement of that? To trust God, right? To trust God, to put one's faith in God, to be patient in the processes that God has um, adopted for us and for our development. That the end goal is not about getting stuff. The end goal is not about how many people we can identify as followers or fans. The end goal is a well-lived life. And then a well-lived life will often produce many of the things that we enjoy and sometimes are in need of. That the objective is to treat the soil of our hearts well. And when we treat the soil of our hearts well, then what it allows is for our hearts to produce things that are fruitful and beneficial both to us and to others. That I want to cultivate the soil of my heart. I want to strive to work towards having a good and healthy soul before God with his help, his aid, his assistance, and the way that that help and assistance shows up through his instruction and his wisdom found in the word, the leadership and guidance of his spirit, the benefit of being in community of like-minded believers, nurturing one another in love and good works. Um, all of those things that God has left at our disposal that propel us into our purpose in Him. What is it the whole duty of man? But to love God, to do mercy, to enjoy mercy, to do justice, to walk humbly with our God. And so trust God. And by trusting God, what some of the things that um, David talks about, like if you look at verses 3 and 4, David talks about trust in the Lord and do good, dwell in the land and enjoy safe pasture. Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desire of your heart. Take delight in the Lord, and He will give you the desire of your heart. And so, again, going back to what I was just saying, right? That when we lean into those principles, those guidelines, those guideposts, Lord, I just want to see you continue the good work in me that you started so long ago. I want to continue to grow in my capacity to love and to serve others. I want to continue to grow in my abilities to to fulfill my call and my purpose in life. When we're leaning into those things, when we're delighting our things, finding our greatest fulfillment in watching and being a part of that work that God is doing in us to develop and to cultivate in us the best version of ourselves as an offering to Him, and as an act of service to others. Then what David says is that what you'll find is that when we're delighting in the process, that the process works, right? The process will be productive. One of my favorite Martin Luther King quotes is, faith is taking the first step, even when you don't see the whole staircase, right? It is stepping out and trusting God, even when you don't necessarily know the beginning from the end. I want you to know that your greatest um, wealth is your faith, and not let me say, your greatest asset is your faith and not your wealth. You think about Job and everything that Job went through, right? Just he lost so much. His situation was so severe, like it's become like a catch-all phrase for when somebody's going through, like, oh man, you're going through the trials of Job. That's how bad his situation is. You're hitting on bad when your name becomes kind of the reference point for whatever that situation is. And so, like, if you're like Job, it's like, man, your situation is bad. But even with everything that Job went through, his faith was unwavering. Yes, Russia. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. Good evening, Bernice. Hey, hey. That with everything that Job went through, his faith was unwavering. And what ends up being the result for him? God ended up restoring everything that he lost and some. Like I think I had to go back and look at the reference, but I think it was like he got double for his trouble, is what preachers used to say back in the day. So I think it's like he got twice as much as what he lost. The superpower, beloved, is not the things that we have or even the relationship cachet that we maybe enjoy. But it really is our faith and that connection and relationship that we have with God. When you start um, at the beginning, then it ensures that you get the kind of end that we want. And really, the beginning is that foundation, that relationship with Him. And so, what David says, with that being our foundation, um, trust in the Lord and do good, right? Um, the old folks used to say back in the day, sending your timber up to heaven, reaping what you sow, like continuing to do good work, continuing to putting good work out into the universe, continue to treat people well, continue to be respectful to others, even as you set healthy boundaries and demand respect from others. Um, as my friend and mentor, Apostle Mark Jones, likes to say, his one of his things that he says, and has been so helpful, so I mean, truly, truly beneficial to me, is he just talks about, I just want to be helpful. Like, I want to be helpful. And one of the things that you find is if every day we're waking up and our focus is, okay, God, show me the people who need my help, and who want my help. Yeah, you'll find that there is always something that God has purpose for you during the course of that day. And when you and I are walking in, operating in our purpose in the Lord, then the Lord will make sure that our purpose is provided for, right? That we have what we need, whether it be encouragement, whether it be resources, the right relationships, the right opportunities. He just has a way of working it out. And somebody knows what I'm talking about, but he has a way of working it out. And he'll work it out through a number of different channels. Sometimes it'll be just the comfort of his spirit and him giving you a sense of, it's going to be okay. You've had a chance to cry it out, scream it out, shout it out, and then after all of that, and you get into his presence, and then he just says, I got you, and it's going to be okay. Sometimes it's a timely word from a friend, where they maybe don't even know. Like, there've been so many times where maybe I'm preaching a message, or I've gone somewhere and somebody's doing a study. They don't know me, don't know what I'm dealing with, have no idea what's going on, and they have no idea that I've been praying and asking God for direction, or praying and asking God for a word, and then you show up and it becomes crystal clear that the messenger is this person that's in front of you. And so trust the Lord. And a part of that means trusting the process. And then trusting the process means trusting God's timing. It means trusting his methodology. It means that we do not have the time, nor can we allow ourselves the inclination of envying those who use unrighteous means and methods to get ahead. Whatever they're using, whenever people are doing that stuff, it is short lived. It always catches up to you. We're seeing that more and more, where people who in the past maybe were insulated by their power and their celebrity, even people at in the upper echelons and highest, um, you know, areas of power, in government and entertainment, are not out of the reach of of justice and righteousness. Another great quote from Dr. King. I just got a bunch of Dr. King quotes tonight, just to give you a warning. But Dr. King, and this is probably one of my all-time favorite King quotes, is that the arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice. Um, it may be, justice may be delayed, but it will not be denied. So again, over and over again, this is the theme of Psalm 37. I don't want to become too redundant, um, but I want to just kind of drive home the point in the same way that David does. You look at verses 5 and 6. Commit your way to the Lord, trust in Him, and He will do this. He will make your righteous reward shine like the dawn, your vindication like the noonday sun. Right? We talk about vindication, right? Like, man, that I was doing the right thing, doing it the right way, said what needed to be said, showed up how I needed to show up. And David says sometimes you can be in a situation where it feels like you don't get the result that that you should get, right? That you don't get your righteous reward. And David reminds us that when we're in those situations, just to know that because the fruit of our labor, again, may be delayed, does not mean that it's going to be denied. I don't know if anybody's ever had a garden, but man, sometimes, gardening is a great way to build up your sense of patience and anticipation, especially in different seasons. And so sometimes, man, I'll put some stuff down, or I'll be potting a new plant, and I'll be sure, like, man, this thing is dead. Like, this is not working. I've done everything I'm supposed to do. I read all the instructions. I'm giving it's in the right sunlight. I'm giving the right amount of water. I've put in the right amount of nutrients. This is the right soil, right? And you've done all your homework, and it doesn't look like the plant is thriving. But sometimes there's other things at work that just need time. Like sometimes it just maybe the plant is in shock because you've transferred it from one soil to the other. Or again, any number of things that may be going on. But the thing that I want to do is I want to continue to lean into what I know is good practice. I want to lean into and continue to focus on doing what is good work. And I'm going to trust and believe God that He is the author and finisher of my faith, that He's got it, He's got me, He's got me covered. Um, and and not allowing myself to be intimidated by those who do not use righteous means, but seem to have more power, more money, more resources. Think about Mother Teresa. That's a name that we don't necessarily mention much anymore. But man, if you don't know who Mother Teresa is, or maybe you've heard her name in passing, you should really look her up. Read her biography. Like she was just a phenomenal woman of God. And this lady like took a vow of poverty, did not own much of anything, had very little material possession, but yet impacted millions around the globe, right? It's not what you have, but it's what you give. Um, Usually, what moves, when you talk about, I'm almost done. I'm coming to a close, but when you look at political science, and they say, okay, well, in a democracy, who has the power? Normally, what they say is uh, either you have the money, you have the position, or you have the people, right? When you and I go out into the world and we're trying to do this work that God has called us to do, and we're trying to, Lord, what is the leverage? How do I get these things done? What David would say to you is number one, it first begins with God. Is my heart right before Him? Am I on assignment? Am I out here just kind of doing my own thing, trying to build my own kingdom? And sometimes we can, be saying that we are here, working the righteous cause, but really, we just like everybody else playing the angles and seeing how we can advance ourselves. But first, it begins with my relationship with God and searching my own heart, and are my motives, in the right place? And if my motives and my values are solid, they're sound, then have I been able to connect the dots? Like, do my motives, my values, those sound values, show up in the judgments that I make, my practices, my habits, the way that I go about my work? That could be anything from how I talk to and how I treat other people, the way I show up in my relationships, the types of thoughts that I have about other people, which then influence the way that I, treat them and interact with them. Like doing that work, and then the work itself, the kind of work that I'm drawn to, or, am I finding the ways that the work that I'm called to contributes to the overall well-being of others, and how is it that God's love and His goodness is being displayed, whether it be overtly or covertly, right? Obviously, or maybe subtly. Um, God's impact on me and how I'm showing up in this work for you, right? And answering those questions. And when I can feel in my spirit, like in the Word and in my just that things are in alignment, right? Then that means that the soil of my heart is being cultivated properly. I'm getting the right um, nutrients in there. That, like, these are all of the ingredients of a well-lived life. And what David says is that when those things are in place, when those things are in place, then what becomes the ultimate benefit is that we get an opportunity to to see God vindicate our methodologies and our practice. Um, that rather than some of the reactions that we can have to seeing people, the workers of iniquity, the wicked, the unrighteous, prospering in spite of their behavior, is again, we can lean into jealousy, we can lean into envy, we can end up in back and forth arguments about, well, you have to do it this way because X, Y, and Z. There's a whole bunch of lanes that you can take with that. And David says the lane that I would recommend is one, just trust God. Two, know that all of that stuff, all that foolishness, all the shenanigans is temporary. It's that like there is a beginning and an end to that stuff. And so don't trip too much. Don't be impressed with easy come, easy go, right? Don't be too impressed with that stuff, but instead choose to live a life of substance, a life where even the when you're off the scene, money, material, all that stuff is gone. But when you stand before God, you stand before Him with a clean soul. The name that you leave behind with your family and your friends is a good name. That your reputation, your character, integrity is intact. What does it profit a man or a woman to gain the whole world at the expense of their soul? What good is it to have all of the things that society says that we need to either appear successful or be successful if those things come at the expense of our peace, um, our righteous mind, our most important human relationships? And those are all of the kind of the things that's the type of time that David is on. I'll close with this final quote from David. A little while and the wicked will be no more. Though you look for them, they will not be found, but the meek will inherit the land and enjoy peace and prosperity. Um, Jesus echoes these words in the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 5, verse 5. Blessed are the meek, for uh, they shall inherit the earth. Um, one of the things I can say as I get ready to close, man, one of the things that I can say, I mean, and I mean this, I mean this, I mean this from the depths of my heart. Um, any fight that I've fought and I lost, I can look back and I can trace where I missed God. But anytime that I've been locked in with the Lord, I've been on my square. I've been where He wanted me to be, doing what He wanted me to do, saying what He wanted me to say, like locked in. Um, then He's never failed me. He's never failed to show up. He's never failed to get the outcome that He promised. He is undefeated in my life. And so I want to encourage you, whatever you may be facing, whatever opportunities may exist, lean into the words of David, trust the Lord. Don't allow what other people have gained through illegitimate means to shake you, move you, or tempt you. Um, I want what God has for me, and I want to, and I know that His desire is not just for me to acquire those things, but He wants me to also continue to acquire the kind of character and integrity um, that best exemplifies who He has made us to be, and um, the kind of person that He plans to spend eternity with. So, listen, I love y'all. Again, it's tonight I don't feel all the way 100% because I know we've been over here celebrating Granny's birthday, but do please be encouraged. God is with you. He is not forsaken you, and He's got your back. All right. God bless. Have a good night.